might want to bring yourself back a little bit there, Ken, on the camera. That's it.
How's that? Is that okay?
Just looking at your forehead. Fortunately,
My
you've
arm,
got hair like that.
like, listen,
You
my
know,
arms aren't that long. You know what I mean?
I'm surprised you've kept your hair after all these years. To be honest with you,
Well, it is
I don't know.
mine. It is
Have you
mine.
done?
It doesn't come off. Like, you know what I mean?
Are you sure they're not implants?
It's a good fit, isn't it?
No,
It's a good fit.
it's a very good fit. I mean, Jimmy's has held well, haven't they? They've held very well.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. We got Ken Doherty. Sorry about the break in the stream. Ken, thanks very much for joining us this evening.
Pleasure.
As usual, another great top snooker player coming on talk about his career. We're going to.
Who's that?
Well, I don't know. You'll be here in a minute. You'll be here in a minute.
Is that Joe? Are you talking about Joe Swale?
Listen, let me tell you something. Joe's been begging me to come on here for weeks. He's been begging me. But he gets on my nerves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I just said, listen, Joe, just hang on a second, will you? Just hang on. I want to leave you to the end. You can't, you're no good. You've done it. You're done. I'm going to leave you right to the end. I'm going to leave you right to the end, and then we'll interview you when we've got time.
Yeah.
He says, okay.
You'd have to do Joe's in a couple of parts because he wouldn't stop yakking on. You know what I mean?
Kenny's worse than me. And let me tell you something. I've got a terrible reputation. I've got a terrible reputation for talking. Quiet as a mouse.
Yeah.
Right, look, Ken.
I tell you, I miss Joe on the circuit. We had such great fun over the years. You know, I miss having him around. You know, for the laughs and the bit of crack and the few beers after the tournament or after you play or whatever. You know, he's great. Great company to be around.
His jokes are terrible, though, Ken. His jokes are awful. You know, he can't bloody drink either. So I mean, I don't see the excitement part of it. You know.
I know, yeah.
No, don't worry about it. It's okay. All right, Joe.
He said he's only drinking twice a week now, Monday to Thursday and Thursday to Monday.
Yeah, no. It's funny, you know, Joe was supposed to come on a few weeks ago, but he's just waiting for some little bits of equipment to make the stream easy. He was supposed to come on with Jordan about 3 weeks ago. But Joe will be coming. Guys, Joe will be coming on. He's not as dull as I'm making him out to be. He's a wee bit more exciting.
He's a lovely lad.
He's a wee bit more exciting. So anyway, let's get down to you. Ken, you've had 30 years so far. Yeah. 30-year career. You know, you were Irish amateur champion, you know, you were twice, you know, you were junior world amateur champion. You've done all the junior stuff, all the amateur stuff. And then you came in, you got on the tour 1990, if I've got that right. You know, and then boom, pretty much couple of seasons, top 16. Within a couple of seasons, you shot straight in the rankings, stayed in the top 16 for about 16, 17 years, you know, and great career, fantastic career, you know. You've won 6 ranking events. You've been runner-up in 11. I've looked at the stats, by the way. Done my homework for a change, boys. A little bit of research goes a long way. And more significantly, you've had 3 world finals and you've won one of them. So perhaps you maybe could have said, well, maybe I could have had another one, maybe not. But let's touch on the first one, because it was, I think it was, am I right? It was 97.
Yeah, 97, yeah.
And let's have a little bit of a reflection on that and the build up to that.
Well, I mean, the build up to that year, the final was pretty bleak. You know, I'd lost to Steve Davis in the Masters in London. He beat me 6-1. Then I played him in the Masters here, the Irish Masters in Goffs. He beat me 6-1. And then before the World Championship, we had the British Open down in Plymouth. And I played Michael Judge, my fellow countryman, and he beat me in the first round. So I had 3 first-round losses in the 3 tournaments leading up to the World Championship. And I was going into that year, that World Championship, just clinging clinging on to my top 16 place. If I lost my first round, I was paired up in the first round against Mark Davis, and there was a lot of pressure on me because if I lost that first round match, I might have been knocked out of top 16. So I went to that World Championship just concentrating on winning the first game, just to try and keep my top 16 place. So that was like the first match was almost like a big final to me,
right?
And I was under serious pressure. But the 2 weeks, and I'll never forget this, the 2 weeks prior to the World Championship, Ronnie O'Sullivan and I decided, right, listen, in the run-up to this World Championship, let's just practice with each other every single day, because we played in the same club, and he had his table was number 2, my table was number 3. So we played alongside each other, but we very rarely sort of played each other. We had our bit of differences between our sort of times in Ilford, you know, as you can imagine. So I said, listen, let's just practice together. No bullshit. We'll play each other every day. Best of 19, 2 best of 19. Just in the run up. I need the practice. You need the practice. And I said it'll sharpen up the both of us, you know. So he agreed. And every morning we were there banging the door down 10 a.m. and we'd play like a best of 19 for like loser pays at lunch or something like that, you know. And sometimes we might play 2 best of 19s if it went quick. And that was for the first 2 weeks, for the 2 weeks in the leading up to the World Championship. I got to play Mark Davis. And as I said, for me, it was clinging on to my top 16. That's all I was worried about, winning that first match. And I beat him 10-8. And, of course, Ronnie O'Sullivan, in the first round of the World Championship that year, he made that maximum in 5 minutes, 20 seconds. The both of us were, like, got so sharp because of our practice routines together and our practice and match play against each other. I think I played Steve Davis in the second round, who had beat me, as I said, 6-1, 6-1. In both Masters, in the Masters in London and the Masters here. And I ended up beating Steve Davis 13-3 with a session to spare. He'd never been beaten at the World Championship with a session to spare. So I was the only one to inflict that on his CV, which I was very proud of. And after beating him with that score, I went from being under pressure in the first round and just scraping over the line to my confidence going sky high. And when I saw Ronnie O'Sullivan make that wonderful break, it was sort of, it gave the both of us a great lift, you know. And from then on, I played John Higgins in the quarterfinals. I beat him 13-8. I had a great match with him, 13-8.
It's a long match.
I played Ronnie O'Sullivan, I think that year, played Stephen Hendry in the quarterfinals. And Hendry beat him, but it was a really close match. It was a fantastic quarterfinal. And I beat Elaine Robidoux in the semi-final 17-7 with a session to spare as well. And of course, Stephen Hendry, I can't remember who he beat in the semi-final. It might have been Jenny. I can't remember who got to the semi-final that year. Was it James Watson? I'm not quite sure who he beat in the semi-final. So I was in the final. I played 2 matches with 2 sessions to spare. I was fresh as a daisy. I was playing Stephen Hendry in the final, but it was like playing him in his own backyard because he hadn't been beaten there for 5 years. He was going for like 6 championships in a row, which is like, even in this day and age, you can't see anybody ever doing that, you know? Like you couldn't see like Judd Trump doing that or Neil Robertson doing that or Ding or anybody doing that. It was just an incredible record that he had. So I was a huge underdog to beat him. But I went out with a smile on my face. I played a very relaxed game. I knew he didn't like playing me because I'd beaten him a few times in finals and semi-finals or whatever over the course since I was a pro, since 1990. So I wasn't like I was scared of him, but I was nervous, I must say, because you know he had such a great record there.
But you know, look, you did it in the end, and like some of the others who have done it, just like Sean. You know, it was all or nothing for Sean Murphy.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, he was talking about that World Championship.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, I felt at that time that this was a great sort of opportunity for me, you know, and I thought that if I could do it this time round, this would be this was like my chance. You know what I mean? So that's what sort of helped me relax a little bit more, like, you know.
Well, it put you in good stead, and it gave you lots of confidence because, I mean, obviously that you were practicing with Ronnie, and that I mean, do you feel that was a big contributor? That really, really,
definitely, because the two of us, as I said, it sort of sharpened us up no end, and you know, I just felt that going into it, playing Ronnie every day was good for me because you know, the both of us were beating each other, but we were getting some great match practice, and it was building up my confidence sort of going into it. But that year, I had no idea I was going to win the World Championship at all. Like, I mean, I was just concentrating, as I said, on the first match, Mark Davis. And once I got over that, it was like a whole weight came off my shoulders, you know.
Absolutely.
And my confidence went from being there right up to sky high. And once I got over Davis and Higgins and then Robbie Dew, I went into the final feeling, you know, this was my chance. You know, I really believed that. And I tell everybody this story, like during that World Championship, after, like, I think it might have been the quarterfinals or something like that, I could see myself, because my memories of watching the World Championship was Higgins in 82 and Taylor in 85. And that's why I wanted to be a professional snooker player. Those images, I always remember. They were there instilled in me from the age of like 12 and 13. And I could see I'd go to bed at night. I used to dream of myself lifting that cup up and giving it a big kiss, you know, just like Higgins did and Taylor did. And it's something that I always wanted to do. And for some strange reason, during that couple of weeks, after I got over those the initial matches, I could see myself lifting it up. I thought this was a great chance. I felt fantastic. And I firmly believe that seeing that was like almost, you know, the way that they talk about visualization and stuff like that. And I firmly believe that helped me keep so calm, kept my belief, kept my confidence. And I went out in that World Championship. And even though Hendry was, you know, such a big favourite against me, I was so relaxed. I was smiling. I was joking with the crowd. And that sort of was a good sort of psychological sort of ploy from my point of view, because I wanted him to know that I wasn't afraid of him. You know what I mean? I wanted him to know that I was enjoying this atmosphere. I was loving it. And that sort of, that was sort of a little bit of psychological sort of warfare that was going on, which you had to do, like, you know?
Yeah, but, you know, you were the first one really to break him. You want to put it like that? Because you know, you were, I think you were Henry's, I mean, that was the first time he had lost against you. So, I mean, he was a bit surprised. You were like ecstatic. Fantastic. But just going back, you know, a wee bit there, Sean, you know, you're obviously an amateur champion, Irish champion, amateur world champion.
Yeah.
You know, you were very, very successful. You always looked like getting on the tour because you were better than the rest at that time. Did you have an inkling even then that maybe, you know what, I think I can win a world championship?
No, I didn't know. I went over, I tell you what I did. I left school when I was 18 and I went over to England. I tried to be Irish champion here. And I'd lost in the first round when I was defending it in 88. And I thought to myself, look, I'm not getting any better here. I said, I have to go away. If I don't go away and see how good I am against the best in England, then I don't know how I'm gonna progress. I don't know how good I can be. So I made the conscious decision after I finished my leaving cert. I had 500 quid in my pocket. I got on the boat. And myself and Anthony O'Connor from Cork, we decided to go over together. We were staying in his mother's cousin's digs over there.
Okay.
And we said, look, we'll go over there for a few weeks and we'll bring our money with us. We'll see how we get on. Eugene Hughes, who was a resident professional in the Ilford Snooker Centre, says, come over to me. He said, I'll get you free practice and anyway, and that'll get you started. And then you can sort your digs out. And that's how it all started. And I just wanted to go over and see how I could get on against some of the best amateurs in the world, because that's where they're all based. And also they had like pro-ams every weekend over there in Ireland. Like we'd have a tournament like once a month or once every 6 weeks. So I was playing almost every weekend, traveling to pro-ams all the length and breadth of the country. And that's exactly how it sort of, I got the practice to try and play against these lads to try and improve, you know.
Good point there, Ken. Actually, take heed of that there, lads. I keep saying it to you all the time. Just because you're losing your qualifying matches on the tour doesn't mean you have to stop playing. Just look around playing. I have back-to-back pro-ams every month. You can come down, win £400 a day.
Yeah.
If you're good enough. But yes, no, very, very good point. You actually answered a few questions in one hit there. That's great. I love it. See when it all just like flows. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Really, really easy indeed. So, look, following year, after you won the Worlds, you nearly did it again.
Yeah.
Well, how did that feel? I mean, all of a sudden you beat Hendry and you got back into the final again. You must have felt a wee bit more comfortable.
I did, yeah, and I mean it's such a good year as a world champion, and I think that sort of helped me that I didn't want to sort of give up the cup, I had such a great time with it, and I got all the way to the final again, and nobody had ever defended it the first time winner had never defended it. That's what they call the Crucible course, Joe Johnson almost did it in '87. He got back to the final. But I remember when Davis won it for the first time, he lost in the first round the following year. When Hendry won it for the first time, he lost in the quarterfinals to Steve James the following year. Mm-hmm. And when I went back there, I felt I'm just going to try and hold on to this cup as long as I can. I kept it in the hotel room until I had to give it up when I landed there, when the tournament started proper. Yeah. And I kept fighting. I wasn't playing at my best like I did the year before, but I just kept sticking in. And we got to the final, and I played John Higgins, who was in inspirational form. He'd made 14 centuries, which was a record that year in the whole championship. And we went into the final session on the Monday night. I was 13-11 behind, and at 14-11, I potted a brown with just the brown blue and the pink black left. I put the brown into the green pocket and ended up going off into the middle. So I went, instead of going 14-12, went 15-11, and he ended up beating me 18-12, and that was, I think, my chance missed. But yeah, it was nice to get as far as the final, but when I lost it, I was devastated. Absolutely devastated. I always tell the story. When I won the World Championship and I came home to, there was a big street party and everybody waited at the airport, and got the open top bus through the city centre, and people stopping outside with beeping the horns in the cars, stopping the cars, balloons, and people hanging out of windows, office block windows. That was when I won it in '97. When I lost the final in '98, I had to get a taxi home on my own. So people would say, "What's the difference between winning and losing?" But there you go. That's it in a nutshell.
That's fantastic, Ken. I think somebody mentioned that to me before. I don't know, a long time ago. Yeah. You're going to remember these things, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, just looking at your game, let's just focus on your style of play. I look at snooker players, a sort of, you watch them and you try to analyze them and figure out what their style is and what makes them so good. I mean, you seem to have I suppose you are a bit of a tactician. You're a bit of a thinker, and you've got pretty good temperament in that respects too. But would you say that those are your strongest parts? What would you say is the strongest part of your game and how you made it?
Yeah, I mean, I always say to everybody that no matter how much time.
I think you froze up there, Ken. You're buzzing around there like a blue horse fly.
Out of my game.
I've lost you. Come back in, Ken.
Okay, hold on.
That's all right.
How do I come back in now?
Yeah. Well,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you okay. Just try and come back in. It's probably better if you try and stay in one position.
Yeah.
Okay. I know you're a nervous wreck. Try and calm down.
I was coming in here just to get the charger, because it runs down the battery quite a lot, doesn't it?
Oh, does it? Right, okay.
Yeah, okay, no problem. I'll tell you what. Can you see me now?
No, I can't see you.
How do I get the camera back?
Take yourself out. Take yourself off. And come back in again.
Yeah.
Right.
How do I come back in now?
Right. Well, I'm going to.
Do I go back out and then? Will I go back out?
Yeah, just come out. Just come out and then come back in again if you can.
Okay.
Or try and join again while you're on.
Okay.
Yeah. Technical issues, guys. It's just one of those things. Can't all be as good as me. Staying on here. Ken Doherty's walking around the house like a nervous wreck. What can you do? Oh, he's back again. Oh, yeah, here we go. 3, 2, 1. We're going to countdown here.
Is that okay? Is that okay?
That's all right. Now you better stay still or I'm going to start throwing darts at you. Okay?
Yeah, no problem. Sorry about that.
You're not a wee whippersnapper anymore. You know what I mean? You got to stay put. Stay put.
I've got the signal and I've got the battery lined up. We're okay. So
anyway, we were talking about now.
Yeah, so we're talking about my game and practice and stuff like that. And all I would say is, yeah, I always worked hard. I always practiced a lot, and I loved the competition, And I grew up in an era where I used to go in, like when I was a kid. Used to go into, when I was about 13 or 14, I used to get the bus into the middle of O'Connell Street and go around the snooker clubs. I'd have like a 5 or maybe a tenner in my pocket. And I'd go around, I'd go into the Piero in Bachelor's Walk. That'd be my first port of call. And I'd be playing guys for best of like 3 or best of 5 for a 5er. And I'd try and double up my money there. Then I'd go into the home of billiards from there. And I'd try and do the same. And then I'd end up finishing up in the Cosmo, which was downstairs. It was owned by a guy called Jack Rogers, who was Terry Rogers' brother. And in the Cosmo, they had a lot of guys that would play for money. And it was mainly doubles. But I used to try and build up my little pocket money to go in there to play the big boys. And I was only like 14. And those guys were all older lads. And some of them had played international. Most of them had played international for Ireland. And they were all old guys. And they grew up in the time of probably, the likes of Spencer and Reardon and people like that, Pullman. And for me going in playing all those older boys, like these guys be in their 50s and late 40s, and I was only like 13, 14. They used to play that certain way, a real sort of tight match play, money game. You take your like 24s or 32s, you put a colour safe, and you play real hard match play snooker because you had to. Because, I only had, as I said, a tenner, maybe 20 quid in my pocket. These guys might have had 100 or 200 quid in their pocket. You know what I mean? They could play for money all day long. They had businesses and stuff like that. And that's how I learned to play the type of game that I'm sort of renowned for, crafty Ken. But it's the reason I've always played that way is because I was always playing for money and I was always playing these older guys who were very, very hardened match players from playing in the likes of the era of Reardon and Pullman and Spencer and Rex Williams and people like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good aspects of your game, I think, and I always say to the lads, you look at the players on the tour, successful players, and you have a look at their behaviour over the years on the table.
Yeah,
and I think that your temperament's pretty sound. Your overall demeanour is pretty good. I mean, you held yourself together. Like you've just expressed there as a young player, you waited for your chances. You developed that, tactitional sort of match play. Developed early on, and then obviously took itself to the professional game.
Yeah. I mean, the players who would be now obviously they've taken it higher and they've been a lot more successful than me. But like you look at John Higgins wouldn't have a dissimilar game to what I play. Mark Selby, it'd be very similar, and even someone like a Stuart Bingham that would have a very similar game to the way I play it. You know what I mean? It's just that the likes of John Higgins would have been he was a more prolific break builder and a better sort of long putter, but he had a similar game. We had a similar game, very, very similar game for years before he won his 4 world championships.
And very, very similar, perhaps, maybe in that respect, just like you've expressed there, very similar types of player. Tactical match play, waiting for your opportunities, good tactics, and I was going to bring up, the play you've had.
I was never the best at any one particular facet of the game. I was sort of an average in each different facet, like potting, break building. My safety game would probably be the best of, or safety play would probably be the best of all the facets of the game. But I wasn't the best at any one particular facet, but sort of a high average in each of them, and that's what sort of got me through a lot of matches and would have given me a lot of consistency over the years,
Yeah, I mean, okay, you're probably not the most attacking player on the tour, maybe in that respect. No. Everybody has their ups and downs, I think.
Yeah.
You take Ronnie, Neil, and perhaps maybe even Sean as very attacking players.
Yeah, of course.
Big shots on.
Yeah.
Whereas perhaps
I mean, they're fantastic, and I mean that's the way they play. That's the new game now, and it's great to see. I mean, I'd love to be attacking, but I could never, be a great long putter the way they were, and I wasn't as prolific break builders of the likes of they were. But that's why I played the way I did, because I felt I was going to be more successful at it.
I mean, just for the benefit of the young players out there, Ken, who are trying to get on the tour. I mean, how important is things like composure, temperament, and how you structure yourself and how you wait for your opportunity? I mean, how important are these things?
I think they're very important. I mean, even if you look at now, say, for example, Judd Trump, okay? Now, he is one of the most attacking, if not the most attacking player on the circuit at the moment. However, he wasn't as successful as he has been over the last couple of years until he changed his game slightly. He became a bit more patient. I think he understood that to compete with the likes of the John Higginses or the Mark Selby's or even the Neil Robertsons of this world, that he had to be a little bit more measured in his approach. He could still go for the long pots, don't get me wrong. But he knew that he had to tighten up on his safety game, his overall game. And his overall game over the last couple of years has gone from strength to strength. And the big part of his success is that he's matched a lot of the guys with his safety, and he's been a little bit more measured in his approach. But when he has got in now, he has the confidence, he's got the success, and he's kept the momentum going. I mean, and what he's done this season, he's won 6 ranking tournaments before going into the World Championship, and that's without the likes of the China Championship that he would have had a chance in. He's going to be playing in the Tour Championship next week. He'll be favourite to win that. He's just had an unbelievable amount of success over the last couple of years. But for me, it's down to that he's matured. His game has matured, and he's matured as well. And he knew the value of being a little bit more measured and taking a little more sort of consideration when he had to play good safety against the top players. And that's how he's got more success. And when he got his chance, of course, he's brilliant at scoring and brilliant long putter. Those aspects of his game were always top quality. But always what for me used to let him down was his sort of match play instincts and knowing when and what to do in safety. You're not just playing the ABC type shots, but playing very clever safety shots. And I think that's improved over the last couple of years.
Players like Ronnie O'Sullivan were probably only maybe about 4 or 5 years behind you in terms of, playing. You would have, you were quite established when Ronnie was coming in, and all of a sudden you've got this guy, this flush, all of a sudden hits the base and he's banging in big long, he's scaring the crap out of everybody with his long patting and what have you. I mean, did you find Ronnie quite intimidating as a player, and how did you feel playing against him?
Did I find him quite intimidating? Not really. I mean, I've had some great battles with him over the years, but at times, like he was unstoppable. I mean, I played I mean, like I've had some success against them over the years, you know, in tournaments. There's no doubt about that, you know. But I think I played him in the UK final one year, and he was like unstoppable. I think it might have been 2000. I can't remember what year it was, but I lost in the final of the UK to Ronnie. He beat me 10-1, and I was lucky to get one. he was like on top of his game. Every chance he was getting, he was winning the frame. He was unstoppable then, and that's almost 20 years ago, you know. So he was an incredible, and still is an incredible player. And at times he was frightening, you know. But funny enough, I used to love playing him. I used to really love the atmosphere of playing him. He was one of those players, the likes when you play Jimmy White or Hendry or like even Alex Higgins when he was in his day. The buzz of playing those type of players was just a different league to playing anybody else, you know. So it really it excited you more than sort of frightened you playing him, you know.
Quite significant to you too, because he in a kind of way springboarded you, didn't he? Because you practiced with him just prior to winning your first world championship.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, yeah, and I mean, I was in Ilford since 1988. Now I think he was only about 12 when I first met him. Might have been even 10. So I used to practice with him from the age of he would have been about 12. I think I'm 6 years older. So from the age of 12, I was practicing with Ronnie O'Sullivan, you know, and even then he was good to practice with. So I mean, I've seen him develop into such a wonderful player and a genius, really, you know, and what he can do on the table. So it was great to see him at such a young age. I mean, I remember when his father used to send a taxi for me to go and practice with him. He had a table at the bottom of his garden, and he'd send a car for me. Will you come down and practice with my son? You know, he needs to be playing players like you. You know, he learned so much from playing, and he was only 12 at the time, like, you know, and you know, but he was still fantastic to play with even then.
The ball then. And in terms of, you know, as you progressed, you know, in your career, very long career, did you take the help of from others? Did you get assistance from coaches or main coaches? Did you?
You know, something I wish I had of. I sort of self-taught, you know. I didn't get any coaching from anybody. I had a coach, Paddy Miley, who would sort of teach me more. He wouldn't really teach me about cue actions or anything like that. He would basically just about match play and playing matches and, you know, just to keep my concentration, play good safety, you know what I mean? This tactics, because he was an international player himself, you know. And he was really good sort of soundboard more than anything. But I never had a sort of technical coach ever. I mean, I work a little bit now with a good friend of mine, Pat Caulfield. And I mean, he's not a qualified coach, but he knows the game a long, long time himself, you know. So, but he's helped me, you know, since I basically turned professional. But not so much really a lot of technical stuff, really just, you know, helping me with practice and other stuff like that, you know.
I think, I don't know whether you'd agree, but I think there is a lot of talent out there, Ken, on the tour, and they just need to sort of find themselves, you know, and get those wins. And I personally believe it's just up here. And I think that's the type of new coach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, I've been in the latter part of my career. I went to some sort of guys who would try and help me with my confidence and stuff like that, like mind coaches. You know, I think that's very important. And I wish I had have done it a lot earlier in my career. You know, but when you go back to 1990. Nobody really knew about mind coaches, and people didn't delve into mind. They thought for a strange reason, that they thought that was a weakness. You know what I mean? If they were speaking to mind coaches, if you go back 30 years, nowadays it's like common fodder. You know, so I wish that I had have done it a lot earlier in my career. I think it would have helped me a lot more, and I think I definitely would have won a lot more with a lot more help. But I wasn't. I was a little bit sort of closed to it, and I wouldn't have been as open to it as I would be now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think support is one of the big things, for the players. Guys, you don't need to have a coach if you don't feel you need one. A lot of players like Ken, self-taught, come in and done as well as they have without coaches. But there's times when you need a lot of support, might be in terms of psychological support, in terms of traveling and looking after your logistics. A lot of young lads struggle with that, Ken.
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of young lads starting off probably they can't afford it. You know what I mean? But if you look at Judd Trump, I mean, he got his brother to give up his job and come around with him for the last couple of years, and look at what sort of help he's given him. He has someone on his side all the time, someone he can talk to, someone that can help him, like Jordan, the good times and the bad times, and it's done him the world of good. So so even if it's a family member, a good friend, someone who understands the game, knows what they're talking about, someone that you can talk to about snooker, that has a snooker brain, that can talk sense back to you, and I think that's very, very important, because as you said, the game itself is 90% mental. Everybody can go in and make, all the guys on the tour, they can make centuries or 147s in their club and every day of the week, but it's the mental side. It's being in that right positive state of mind every time you go out and you play someone else who's trying to stop you from playing. That's where the positive sort of strategy and thought process comes into it.
Just going to slide off you a wee bit here, Ken, because you're a lot of information here for the guys to take in. We're going to touch on some questions. Okay, normally I get 2 or 3 in one hit, but I've read a couple here. Some of the guys want to know who are your toughest opponents and why.
My toughest opponents over the years, definitely Stephen Hendry. Stephen Hendry was like, for us, when we turned pro, like I turned pro in 1990, but the likes of Higgins, O'Sullivan, Williams came along in 1992. And for us, the benchmark was Stephen Hendry. He sort of revolutionized the game. That, we all became much better, sort of much more aggressive, believe it or not, like because of him, because he brought the game to a new level. So we had to keep up with him. We had to be much more prolific break builders, which we were. And we had to, as well as play good, but we had to score. We had to win frames in one visit, like he was doing. And that's what he brought to the game. The blue off the spot, smash the pack, and try and make the win the frame in one visit. That's what he did. And I was involved with that. Peter Ebden, you could add, as another one. We had, as you said, O'Sullivan, Higgins, and Williams. And then also you had the likes of, Alan McManus, who was a top player at those days as well. And you still had Jimmy White, who was still a top player in the 90s because he was still getting to finals. He was still winning tournaments. Like Jimmy White was an unbelievable talent, and such a tough player to play against, because of all the crowd that you were playing against as well. When he came out to play against you, like the roar and the crowd support he used to get was just phenomenal, and he was still at the top of his game even during that time. Steve Davis was still one of the best players in the world when I turned pro, So we had it all, like, that era was very, very difficult, but it was a great era to be playing snooker in,
So when you were playing these great players, talk about some of your toughest players there, Ken. See when things went wrong, Ken, for you. See when things sort of went very, very wrong, in your game, you were feeling really low. How did you get yourself? How did you reassert yourself? How did you deal with the problems or get your focus back? What kind of things did you do?
I used to be apartment and I'd forget about snooker for 2 days. Sometimes I wouldn't come out of the apartment. I'd go out, go to the shops or something like that. Stay in, and then after a couple of days, I'd be back up to Ilford, and I'd be back on the practice table, and I'd be getting ready for the next tournament. You know what I mean? And that's all. And when you were up in Ilford, we used to have a system there. Even though I had my own table and that, we'd always play best of 7, winner stays on. Like, you know what I mean? So because there were not only Ronnie and myself, there was like Stephen Murphy was there, Joe Swell was there for a time, Fergal O'Brien was there. Michael Judge was there. Then you had Nick Terry, Stuart Reardon, Mickey Rowan, all these like guys who were on the tour as well. So you had about Mark King. You had about 10 professionals coming in now at Vilford every day. And it was only like 2 decent tables, you know. So you were playing best of sevens on and off. Like, you know, winner stays on, the loser comes off and has to wait his turn. So it was good. It was good practice. And it was the only way to get over a defeat. Just get back up to the club and get back on the table.
So just bite the bullet and move on. Keep playing. Forget about the last tournament. Just keep
the worst thing you can do is dwell on a defeat, you know. The best way of getting over it is have a day or two off and then get back up, back on the practice table and just suck it up, you know, and learn from your mistakes.
Just looking at your timeline a wee bit there, Ken, I'll make this as painless as possible. You sort of like, you first sort of 20 years there, you were steady, top 16 of those years. And then you sort of slowed down a wee bit when you hit 40. I don't know, what is that? Is that like a 40 thing when you turn, what was it, midlife or something? What's going on there? What happened?
To be honest, I don't know. I lost, I don't know. After I fell out of the top 16, I found it very difficult to, you know, when you were going to qualifiers in Prestatyn and, you know, that you weren't the top dog anymore. And you had to, fight your way through all those qualifiers. I found that very difficult, you know, and I found that very difficult to cope with. And I think that's when I start trying to use like sports psychology a bit more to try and get that confidence back. And it was just like, it was sort of like a vicious circle. You'd win 1 or 2 matches, but you couldn't get on a run like I did before when I was in the top 16, you know. And I think there's just the confidence sort of drained like from me, you know.
Yep. A bit like perhaps maybe dropping off the tour and going back to Q school. You know, you sort of, you know, you've been in the top 16 for, you know, nearly 2 decades, and then all of a sudden you're slipping down the rankings, you're slipping down to 40, 50.
Yeah. And you know what, sometimes you get a bit embarrassed sometimes of your performances, and you think like, why is this happening? Well, you know it's why it's happening, because I'm not confident anymore. I probably wasn't practicing. I hadn't got the urge to practice as much, but I'd still, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd still be doing like 3 or 4 hours a day, but maybe, you know, when I was in the 16, I was doing like maybe 6 or 8 hours a day, you know, so it was difficult. I think when I fell out at 16, I dropped down outside of 32. I just found it very, very difficult, you know.
And did you, in terms of playing hours and practicing time and that there, did you reduce that practicing time, or were you still?
Well, you know, I suppose when I got married, family came along, then the time sort of dwindled away a little bit more. And that's just the way it was, you know. And then other things came into your life that you were doing and was keeping you preoccupied. So I was probably spending less and less time on the table. But it didn't stop me from, I mean, I love the competition, I love the competing side. But maybe I just didn't practice then as much as I used to when I was living in England, you know.
Well, some of the questions, some of the lads keep sending them in, lads. I'll just look over on the right, but I try and touch on very significant things, maybe that will be of benefit to you. Ken talks about them, but you know, some of the guys are. I mean, what sort of practice routines have you got, Ken? Do you play a lot of solo? Do you like to play different players all the time, or what?
No, I do play solo. Now the odd time I'd play Fergal O'Brien a game. I'd go down to his club, or he'd come up to me. The good thing is Sean Murphy has moved to Dublin, so I can play him a little bit now. Yeah, which is great. And I also play Michael Judge, who used to be on the tour with us, who's playing a lot on the seniors tour. So I play him a bit. But mainly, I go down with my friend Pat or Mick, and I just do the routines and just do a good bit of solo, you know.
You know, Sean rings me up at 2 o'clock in the morning begging me to come on here. You know, I got a message from him weeks ago, you know, and I said, Sean, just wait, just hang on, you know, just take your turn.
Wait your turn.
I can't sleep. He says, I'm fighting with a wife. I can't sleep. You know, what's going on here, Dave? You know, look, I'll let you on. You know, and he rings me up. I don't understand him all. Does he do that to you?
Yeah. He's a good lad. That was great to have him in Dublin, you know, and he's got a lovely setup where he is now in the Stevens Green Club, and we'll definitely be getting some practice in before the World Championship comes up now in a few weeks' time.
Fergal O'Brien.
Yeah.
That man. A lot of good input there. You know, he's not very exciting to watch. But he's got a lot of good stuff, you know.
Yeah, he's a good lad. He's a good lad.
I love Fergal. I think he's great, you know.
Yeah, he's good lad, Fergal. Yeah. I tell you what, I wish, you know, like over the years, I wish I had the same application as what Fergal has had, you know, because if there's one man deserves anything out of this game, it's Fergal. You know, now I know he's won the British Open and that his only ranking tournament, but what a great player he is in his practice. You know, when you go down there and play him on his own table,
it's tough to play.
You know, you're in for a tough afternoon when you're down there playing with him. You know.
You know, the frame may take 2 hours, but it's got to be good. It's got to really,
not always.
You know, sometimes it takes him 5 minutes to play a shot.
That's
you
just the chalk. That's just the chalkest cue.
Sorry, Fergal, I love you to bits. You know I'm only joking. You know, right? We're going to talk about. I always ask this anyway. We're going to talk about tables, cues, and tips. What kind of cue and tip you use there, Ken?
What am I using now? I normally use Elk Masters.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That seems to be an old-fashioned choice.
Didn't have to play much with it, yeah, and it's really good. So but normally I just always use Elk Masters. I've been using Elk Masters since I started playing for 40 years now, you know. So my cue I picked up in the snooker club. I don't know what make it is. There's no make on it. Somebody had left it behind them in the snooker club in Jason's, and of course I didn't have a cue at the time. I was only about 10, and it was put on somebody had left it behind, and it was put on the pool rack, and I picked it off the pool rack. I knew it wasn't a house cue, and I started playing with it, and I loved it. And I asked the manager, could I keep it? And he says, if you give me a $5 for it, you can keep it, you know. And I went around to my mother and asked her for a $5. I told her I'd do some jobs and I'd give her the money back, you know. And it was a beautiful cue and I loved it. And the manager wanted a $5 for it. And so anyway, she gave me the $5. I went into the post office. I got £5 notes at the time. And like I'm talking about 40 years ago now. And I put £3 notes in my left pocket and £2 notes in my right pocket. And I went back around to the manager. And I had the cue in my hand, and I went into my right pocket, and I took the £2 out, and I had it in my hand like this, and I said, I said, my mother couldn't afford the $5. I said, she only had £2, you know, this is all I have, you know. And he looked at me, poor mouth, he looked at the £2, he looked at the cue, and he says, give us the bleeding £2 then, you know. he took the £2 off me. And I have that cue for 40 years. And everything
40 years? Ken, you had that cue for 40 years.
Everything I've won, from the Irish Junior Championships to the Amateur Senior Championships, the World Junior, World Amateur, and World Professional Championship, I won with that £2 cue.
I keep telling these lads, Ken, see the cues, see these 100, 400, 500, £1,000 John Paris cues. Boys, forget about it. Ken has picked up a rack cue and won a world championship with it. So, by the way, so is Stephen Hendry. You know, so I mean, what's the problem? Just go and get a nice cue.
Yeah.
If it feels right,
if you pick up a cue and it feels good, that's good enough for me. You know.
Very, very good. What chalk are you playing with, Ken? Are you using new stuff or what?
I'm using the Time Gold. Yeah, I love it. I've had very little kick since I started using this Time chalk. It's just I think it's the best chalk I've ever had. Like, you know, it's just amazing. No kicks, not much dust comes off it. You know, there's no like chalk marks on the table. I think it's just fantastic. You know, so I'll continue to use that. I think until I finish.
Same cue, rack cue. That's a great story. That's fantastic. You know, that's the kind of thing you'd expect to come out, Alex Higgins to come out with, you know.
Yeah.
Find it on the way to the bar.
Tell you what, Alex Higgins robbed a few rack queues in his time, you know. I've seen him do it. Any decent rack queues, they were off the rack and in his cue case, in a flash.
Oh, for goodness sake. So many stories there, mate, eh?
Yeah.
So many stories.
My favorite Alex Higgins story, well, I've got a couple of them, but I think the first time I met him, I was shaking in my boots. I was working in Goffs at the Irish Masters. I got a job as like an usher, ushering people into seats and taking their tickets and all that. And I was 14 at the time. And the tournament director gave me a job. So I'd meet some of the players and be able to watch them play. And it'd give me like a real appetite, you know, for, you know, maybe down the road if I kept up my hunger for playing snooker, you know. And my hero was Alex Higgins. Was the reason I picked up snooker. And the first time I met him, and he saw me with the Benson Hedges jumper, you know, and I was introduced to him. And he said to me, "Hey, kid, you know, you get me a drink while I'm at the table." I says, "Yes, of course, Mr. Higgins. What would you like, you know?" Well, he goes, "If I ask you for an orange juice, that means a vodka and orange juice, right?" I said, "Mr. Hit, while you're playing," he goes, "Yes, kid. And if I ask you for a vodka and orange juice, that means a double."
You know, that's fucking great. You know, absolutely fantastic. You're looking at. I don't know. I've heard mixed sort of stories about the '82 final, kid. You know, but you know about what he's actually had to drink. You know, during the final. What do you reckon? Do you reckon he's had a few, or
definitely? He was one of those players that actually used to play better when he had a few drinks on him, you know. And I've no doubt about that. I mean, Dennis Taylor told me a story. He was playing him in Goffs as well, and when you're introduced first into the crowd, that means you're the second seed, so you go to the green pocket, you know. When you're introduced second, you're the highest seed. You're always sitting at the yellow pocket. So Taylor came out. He was introduced first. Higgins was the higher seed, but Taylor went to the yellow pocket instead, you know, and he went to pour what he thought was the jug of water into the glass. And when he realized it was straight vodka, he knew he was at the wrong seat. So, but he was one of those players who would play. He would play better. He would play better with if he had drink on him, you know.
He was an amazing character. You know, he was a great player. He's my hero too, Ken.
Yeah.
I think, you know, it was very sad.
I'll tell you my favourite one is when he came down to play me before the Irish Professional Championship. He hadn't been well. He'd recovering from cancer. And 10 o'clock in the morning, he was playing that evening time. And I said, "Come down." I said, "We'll practice a little bit, you know, to give you a little bit of play before you play." Because I knew he hadn't picked up a cue. So he came down to the Radisson, 10 o'clock in the morning. He walked in. I said, "Do you want any breakfast or anything, Alex, you know?" And he said, "No." I said, "Just get me a pint of Guinness, you know?" I said, "Yeah, no problem." He took off his coat. He took out his old Holborn tobacco pack, and he started rolling his own ciggies, you know? So the pint of Guinness came. He took the racing post out of his pocket, and he ticked off a few of his horses for the day. The Guinness came, and he was smoking in the room. He went around the room looking at the different photographs on the wall. And his picture is on the wall quite a lot, you know, in my snooker room. And I brought him over to have a picture with George Best. I played George Best when I was about 18, you know. And I said, "Here's an old friend of yours, Alex, like over here, Georgie Best, you know." So he came over and he stood in front of the picture like that, and he took a drag of the cigarette, he took a sip of the Guinness, and he goes, "Georgie Best," he goes, "what a waste." Well, I fell around the place laughing. I mean, that was just, and that was Higgins to a T, you know. That's exactly what.
Oh God, so many stories, you know, so many stories. Extravagant.
He was great. He was really. We became, you know, close, and he was really good to me. And he used to ring me up, you know, if I won a match or he rang me up when I was in the final of the World Championship, the second year, and I was going out to play the final, and he rang, and I saw his number, so I answered it, and he goes, "Win it for the second time, like the great Alex Higgins did," he says. That's all he said to me. He said, "The best of luck, babes," and that was it. You know what I mean? He was fantastic, though. He was fantastic.
Fantastic. We're going to start getting through some questions here, Ken. Now, this is going to run 2 hours again. All right.
Okay, go on.
Here we go. No, we're gonna. Wait, we got a double hit question here. There's a couple of lads asking, who do you think were the biggest underachievers on the tour, and a player you've ever seen or played that didn't make it?
There was, well, something. When I went over to England for us in late '88, there was so many good players, on the Pro-Am circuit, who could play, make centuries, and who'd win. Like I say for example, there's one player there, Barry Pinches. He used to win Pro-Ams all the time. When he turned pro, he couldn't do it, and he was one of the most prolific. I mean, during the year of, like, say 88, 89, 90, before I turned pro, it was Barry Pinches or Peter Ebden who I'd be playing more than not in Pro-Ams up and down the country, and they'd be winning the Pro-Ams like all the time, and he just couldn't take it to the pro table. He was a fantastic player. One of the players who I don't like to use underachiever. I don't think that's fair, but I think Anthony Hamilton was one of those players who had a lot of talent, and he's only won one tournament, but could have done a lot better. He just, I think he was fantastic break builder. Good all-round game, very prolific break builder, and I thought he could have won a few more tournaments than he did. But still, yeah, I think he was one of those that could have done a lot better, I think,
And any new players have caught your eye in any way you're impressed with?
Yeah, I think I like, I love Jack Lazowski. I think he's fantastic. I think he's going to be very successful. Once he gets his he has to do what Judd Trump now, what Judd Trump did. He has to become a little bit more mature, on the table wise. But I think he's a fantastic talent. Luca Brissell, who just won the tournament last week, I think he could do a lot in the game as well. I don't think he's going to be a very consistent player, Luca Brissell, but I think he's one of those that could win at tournaments. He could just fly for a week, miss him for a couple of weeks, but he's going to be one of those players that could really do damage.
Well, hopefully we'll be talking to him next week, guys. Luca might be on next week. We're going to talk. Luca is a young guy. He's a young player. He's going to mature.
Yeah, and he's very, very, very talented player. Very talented player, and I love him. Very level-headed, very down to earth. Nice guy. So, yeah, and I was delighted he won last week. He played really well. A
couple of lads here are asking about Irish snooker, Ken. What's happening in the future of Irish snooker? Blah 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 blah. Well, I think a lot of good things. I mean, young Aaron. It's just I'm very impressed with young Aaron.
Yeah, he's a good player. Yeah, looking forward to seeing him on the tour. And yeah, I'm very impressed with him. And I haven't seen, like, Ross Bullman is probably another one, could have been on the tour already. He just lost out by one frame. So, but yeah, I think those two lads are the best in Ireland at the moment.
Oh, they are. Is it too soon, maybe? I'm thinking maybe a season or two too soon.
Yeah, but I mean, like, they need the experience of being on the tour and playing in a lot of tournaments and giving themselves opportunities,
But what have they got to lose? They've got nothing to lose.
They've got nothing to lose, no, exactly.
They've got everything, absolutely everything to gain. So let's just touch on the hardest to play again. So I've answered that one already. Quite often you answer the questions before they even get on there, So basically the formats, we talk about numbers of professionals, 128 professionals on the tour, Ken. Is that a good number? Is that fine, or should there be less? What do you think?
No, I think that's fine. I think the numbers are good. I think if you had it down to 64, it'd be too small a tour. I think to give players like amateurs around the world, the incentive to get on the tour, I think 128 is a fair number, because if you had only 64 on the tour, a lot of the amateurs, they may lose interest in trying to qualify because it'd be so difficult to qualify. There wouldn't be many spaces available each year. So I think the system that they have at the moment is probably the fairest system they've ever had.
Yeah, Colin Phillips is asking me which player was the hardest to play against in your career. I think you probably answered that one.
Yeah, I mean, all those lads. I mean, I came up in an era playing Hendry, playing Jimmy White, playing John Higgins, Mark Williams, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Peter Ebden, all those lads, and Steve Davis as well. They were all the toughest players I've played, like, without a doubt.
Here's a good question. You like this one. Which player would you like to spend an evening with at the bar, swapping stories?
I think there's only one. Well, there's a few of them, but I think I mentioned one earlier, Joe Swale. I miss him being on the circuit, and Jimmy White as well. I love Jimmy White. And I think the guys that I have the best time with now are when we're doing the commentary with John Virgo and Dennis Taylor. The three of us, we never stop laughing, telling stories, having dinner, having a few drinks, and telling like snooker stories or telling jokes. We're all the three of us at any BBC tournament. The three of us would be together and we'd be all laughing our heads off, I
want to touch on that because we're going to wrap this up very, very shortly, Ken. I was going to talk to you about the TV stuff. Dr. Water, Ken, you're amazing. I mean, you've been doing the TV commentary now for a really long time. It doesn't matter who you do it for, because it's always good to have an ex-world champion or a player of your status on there to play. Are you really enjoying the TV stuff? Would you like?
Yeah, I do. I love it. I mean, I think I've been doing it about 10 years now, but I do. I enjoy it. I thought to myself, I'd be only sitting at home watching it because I love watching this game. I love the game itself. I love the intriguing sort of matches that are, unfolding on a screen. So the fact that you're there and you're watching it or you're commentating, it's just like, it doesn't get any better than that. It was either that or I'd be sitting at home with my sofa. I'd be commentating to myself, so at least I'm there and I'm getting paid for it as well. I mean, it's not like it's hard work, you know what I mean?
You can sit at home and talk to yourself if you want. No, you got to carry on with the commentating and want to see you more on television, because if you keep doing it, you're going to be up there with me. You're going to be up there. Just keep doing it. You'll be all right. You'll be. I'll let you stand in for me, Ken. I'll let you stand in for me. Okay.
Thanks.
Right, we're going to wrap this up really, really, really soon. So, the last thing I'm going to ask you, Ken. Okay, this is an easy question, very easy question. What's happening with you? What are you going to do next? What's left? What's left inside you? What do you want to do?
Good question. I'd love to. I know it's going to be difficult, but I think I'd love to play at the Crucible once more. I'd love that. Would be fantastic to come out through the curtains onto the play in the Crucible. I did it a few years ago, and I got down and kissed the ground, like, you know what I mean, like, because I was so happy to be back. It's just got a lot of great memories for me, playing so many great matches over the years that I've played in at the Crucible. So I'd love to play there once more. That would be a nice send off. And I don't know. I love the game. I love playing it. I love commentating, as I said, but I love playing it more, and I love competing. So as long as I still enjoy that, I'll keep playing. So I hope to stay on the circuit for at least another couple of years, and I'll play on that circuit, and I'll play in the senior circuit hopefully as well. Because I think that has a good future as well. The seniors.
You might come up against me, Ken.
I look forward to that.
I'm sharp. I'm a big hitter. Big long ball batter. You're saying you're 64 in the world, so
yeah.
Is there something to be concerned about there at the minute? Or
well, I think I might have to win a match in the world, or maybe 2 matches to keep my card. But we'll see how it goes. I played all right last week. If I can keep up to a standard like that, I don't think anybody will look forward to playing me in the qualifiers if I can play as well as I played against Mafflin and against Neil Robertson last week. So that will give me a bit of confidence, and I'm going to really practice hard now for the next 4 weeks before the World Qualifiers, and then see what happens.
Well, I'm going to get Barry Hearn a ring, and I'm going to tell him that if he doesn't keep you on the tour for whatever reason, I'm going to come for you, Barry. You've got to keep him on the tour, or you're in trouble. Oh, absolutely. Ken, can you believe that we've actually managed to keep this down to 65 minutes?
Brilliant.
I am over the moon.
Yeah.
You know, I've been drinking. Look, everybody thinks I'm an alcoholic, by the way. I've been drinking coffee. You know, the only time I've had to have a drink is with Fergal O'Brien and Patrick Wallace. I mean, those two would drive you to drink, Ken. They would drive you to drink just watching them. You know, Ron Murphy.
They're good lads, though.
Mark Davis.
They're good lads.
So much red wine.
Yeah. They're good lads.
Ken, guys, thanks very much for joining us. Big thank you to Ken.
Anytime.
As I say, guys, next week hopefully we got Luca coming on. We're going to talk to the kid. He's a great young player, and I think a lot of potential for the future. So keep up to date with everything about the competitions and all the rest of it.